January 2008, Reno, Nevada is a city often seen as the smaller sibling of Las Vegas. Less hectic, more subdued, yet carrying its own collegiate buzz, nightlife, and youthful spirit. The University of Nevada forms the core of this world. Parties, tight-knit friends, students for whom life seems to be just unfolding. But behind the scene, shadows linger. For months, the city has been rattled by reports of assaults near the campus. Young women speak of strange men, attempted abductions, encounters ending in terror. It appeared a predator was stalking the university area, biding his time. On the night of January 20th, abstract fears gained a face. A 19-year-old student, Brianna Dennison, goes to sleep over at a friend's home after an evening out. The house sits just blocks from campus in the student district's core. It feels secure there, with friends close by. The streets are familiar. No one could imagine that what happens here would reverberate across America. By morning, Brianna will have vanished. Her personal items remain behind her phone, purse, shoes. But the girl herself is gone from the house. A disappearance that initially seems a puzzle will swiftly become a nightmare, revealing the city's hidden side. This is the tale of how one man paralyzed a community with dread for weeks. This is the story of a young woman's tragic death, transforming her into a symbol for a generation. And this is the account of how the pursuit of justice became a trial for a family, friends, and an entire city. January 19, 2008. College life in Reno pulses with energy. Even on a chilly January weekend, parties, gatherings, music, late-night talks define the university rhythm. For Brianna, this evening was ordinary. She was like countless other students, open-hearted, kind, with a trusting smile that mirrored her youth. Nearing midnight, she heads with friends to a house close to campus. Students frequent this place. Some sleep over after parties. Others just come to connect. The vibe is familiar, safe. The house belongs to her friend, making everything feel known. That night, Brianna beds down in the living room. She takes her blanket and a stuffed animal with her, a small teddy bear she'd slept with since childhood. A simple detail destined to become one of the story's most haunting elements. Around 10 the next morning, her friend wakes to an immediate sense of wrongness. Brianna is missing. Her belongings are left behind. Her phone, her bag, her shoes. Logically, had she chosen to leave, she would have taken her phone at least, but nothing is disturbed. Small bloodstains mark the pillow. Their size doesn't yet permit final conclusions, but they are deeply unsettling. Crucially, the blanket and the toy are absent. The very items she had when she went to sleep are gone. Anxiety mounts with each passing minute. First, friends call her phone, send messages silence. Then they contact her family. At this moment, a chain of events begins that will not cease. Police become involved rapidly. The disappearance of a young woman in a student neighborhood is too serious to dismiss. From the outset, investigators recognize no signs of voluntary departure. This is an abduction. They inspect the house, locate traces of blood, note the missing blanket and toy. All evidence points to the girl being taken forcibly. Also significant, no signs of a struggle outside the house. This suggests the perpetrator acted quietly, with confidence. In the first hours, hope persists. Parents and friends cling to the belief Brianna might return. Media begin covering the case. Students post flyers. Social media erupts with posts about the disappearance. Simultaneously, police start examining possible links to recent assaults. The university area has lived under a cloud for months. There have been sexual attacks bearing similar details. Women were grabbed, pulled into vehicles, threatened with weapons. Some survived, some escaped narrowly. Now, investigators suspect Brianna's disappearance may be part of this series. If so, a serial rapist is at large and he has escalated. Brianna's family engages actively from the start. Her mother and friends approach the media, appear on television, appeal to the public. A massive search mobilizes. Students and volunteers scour neighborhoods, check abandoned buildings, wooded strips, empty lots. A sense of paralysis descends upon Reno. A city accustomed to a quiet rhythm now lives in fear. Parents hesitate to let daughters go out alone. Young women stop walking at night, even short distances. Everyone understands. While the criminal remains free, no one is safe. Forensic work commenced inside her friend's house following Brianna's disappearance. Investigators meticulously examined every corner. Minute bloodstains were discovered on the bed where she slept. They were so faint they could have been missed, but they constituted the first indicator something violent had occurred indoors. The blanket she used was gone, as was her cherished stuffed bear. To the girl's family, this felt like cruel mockery. Someone had taken the most personal items to obscure traces or conceal the body. Doors showed no signs of forced entry. The entrance was likely unlocked, a habit the criminal exploited. In a student area, this wasn't unusual, but that casual practice proved fatal. Within hours of the report, the entire city knew. Students, residents, volunteers organized into groups, combing wastelands, outskirts, wooded patches. Flyers bearing the girl's photo appeared on streets. Her portrait aired on news broadcasts. Police deployed dogs, thermal cameras, even helicopters. Hundreds of witness calls poured in. People reported seeing the girl or suspicious men, hearing night screams, noting abandoned cars. Each tip was pursued, but all proved false. Days stretched into weeks. Initial hope gave way to deepening despair. An atmosphere of fear became palpable. It seemed the hunter stalked women in daylight. Investigators began comparing Brianna's case to others. Recent months had seen attacks on young women near campus. They were dragged to the ward cars, threatened with weapons, silenced. Several victims had escaped, yet police still hadn't detained a suspect. The situation now appeared transformed. What was a series of assaults had escalated to abduction. This signaled the offender's growing brutality and confidence. Reno existed in a state of tension. Girls ceased walking home solo. Parents phoned daughters nightly. Campus groups formed for mutual safety. Television discussed the disappearance daily, warning of potential danger. The city virtually closed in on itself, its fear intensifying with each passing day. On February 22nd, workers discovered a body in an industrial zone vacant lot. Police confirmed the worst. It was Brianna. The scene was horrifying. The girl was found nude except for socks. She wore 2 pairs of underwear, one belonging to her friend. To investigators, this seemed a deliberate act, symbolic degradation, mockery, or an attempt to mislead. No doubt remained. This was a brutal sexual homicide. Forensic experts obtained DNA samples from the body. The profile was entered into databases immediately, but no matches emerged. This meant the offender had no prior serious convictions, remaining outside the system. This posed a major investigative hurdle. DNA confirmed violence, but provided no name. Yet details slowly surfaced. Witnesses recalled a car parked near the friend's house that night, a man inside watching the street. Others mentioned a vehicle with a distinctive radio deck adorned with lights resembling police flashers. Inside, eyewitnesses noted a child's shoe was visible. These details seemed incidental, yet they later helped investigators focus the search. The inquiry stretched for weeks. Hundreds of cars were checked, thousands of interviews conducted. The FBI engaged. Investigators sensed they faced a predator skilled at covering tracks, one who planned carefully. This was no random individual or impulsive act. They confronted a criminal confident in his impunity. Just as the investigation seemed to stall, police received a call. A woman reported finding women's underwear in her ex-boyfriend's car, which she found peculiar. His name was James Michael Bila, a man with no obvious criminal history, a former Marine and construction worker. When investigators invited him for questioning and requested a DNA sample, he refused. This instantly raised alarms. Covert surveillance and subsequent examination resolved everything. Forensic experts obtained DNA from items in his vehicle, comparing it to samples from Brianna's body. The match was perfect. Now the mystery that had tormented the city for a month had a specific name. Upon the suspect's identification, Reno seemed to fall silent. The man hunted for weeks had lived among them. This wasn't a phantom maniac from lore, but an individual indistinguishable in a crowd. James Michael Bila had once served in the Marines. After his service ended, he returned to civilian life but never found his place within it. He worked in construction, shifted through minor jobs, lived quietly withdrawn. Those who encountered him daily recalled nothing striking. He didn't seek friends, didn't participate in community life, as if preferring to remain a shadow. This detachment seemed a harmless quirk, but it later became clear his dark fantasies festered within that silence. His aging van symbolized this hidden side. Externally, an ordinary vehicle. Inside, a space meticulously prepared for abduction. Locks impossible to open from within. A panel with bright lights mimicking police units. A child's shoe, women's underwear. Strange objects collected and preserved as trophies of his power over victims. This was no accidental discovery. Each item spoke to his mindset, a desire to control, to collect, to leave his mark. Investigators concluded the attack on Brianna represented an escalation. Prior assaults on women in the campus area were now clearly linked to one individual. He began with surveillance and intimidation. Then he progressed to physical violence. Each time, he pushed boundaries further. The murder wasn't random, but a natural culmination of his obsession. Particularly telling was how he left the body. 2 pairs of underwear, one not belonging to Brianna, appeared a cruel demonstration of dominance and a twisted method of making a statement. Neighbors and acquaintances after his arrest echoed one sentiment. They had suspected nothing. He lived quietly, rarely socialized. He didn't cause scenes or seek conflict. It was this invisibility that let him remain hidden. Yet personal items from other women were found in his home. This led many to wonder how many other crimes he might have committed before being stopped. For Reno residents, the most terrifying realization was that the killer wasn't an unknown monster from elsewhere, but a person from nearby. He shopped at the same stores, parked near the same homes, sat in his car on streets where children played and students walked home. This thought proved harder for many than the news of his crime. Evil was not an abstraction or a scary story, but a component of their daily reality. The Reno County Courthouse stood as a fortress in those days. Cameras, reporters, crowds of citizens at its entrance. Inside, however, a silence more oppressive than any noise prevailed. Here, the fate of Brianna Dennison's memory was being decided. James Michael Bila sat in the dock. His indifferent gaze and motionless posture were chilling. He seemed detached from everything, the prosecutors, the jury, even his own attorney. The prosecution built its case methodically. DNA traces recovered from the blanket. Testimony from women who survived attacks in the same vicinity. Evidence from his vehicle. Everything coalesced into an inescapable circle. The prosecutors spoke with calm, almost clinical detachment, avoiding emotion. The defense grasped at details. They argued a lack of direct eyewitnesses, that circumstances could be interpreted differently, but their words drowned under the weight of facts. Each new document, each piece of evidence rendered the defense a formality. Students, teachers, neighbors attended the hearings. For many, this wasn't merely a trial. It was an attempt to reclaim a sense of security. In courthouse corridors, people discussed not just the charges, but how long such a person had lived beside them. Whispers circulated. He could have sat nearby in a cafe, stood in line at a store, and no one would have known. When verdict day arrived, tension became almost physical. Jurors entered deliberation, and the wait stretched interminably, yet they returned swiftly. Mere hours later, a decision was ready. The judge asked them to rise. Silence gripped the courtroom, and then the word everyone awaited was spoken. Guilty. Guilty on every count. Guilty beyond any doubt. The reaction was immediate. Some wept. Others grasped a neighbor's hand. Brianna's parents sat with fingers clenched so tightly their knuckles whitened. This wasn't relief. It was an acknowledgement of the tragedy's magnitude. Sentencing followed later. Death. No grand oratory, no theatrics. The judge pronounced the words evenly. It was that stark simplicity that made them especially heavy. When the case concluded and the verdict was delivered, no sense of relief washed over Reno. The city seemed to freeze. People knew justice had been served, yet the loss remained irreversible. In the first months after the trial, strangers continued visiting the house where Brianna was last seen. Some laid roses, others brought candles, some left handwritten notes on scraps of paper. They bore simple messages. You are not forgotten. We are with your family. These gestures, quiet and almost imperceptible, became symbols of shared grief. The University of Nevada established a foundation in her name. It not only assists students but also speaks openly about issues often silenced: safety, the importance of trust, and heeding warning signs. Every foundation action serves as a reminder. Tragedy can touch anyone, and only shared responsibility strengthens a community. The Dennison family found themselves under a glaring, unbearable spotlight. Their pain was public, yet they found strength to discuss Brianna as a person, not merely a victim. They spoke of her laughter, her habit of inviting friends for evening gatherings. Her plans abruptly ended. These memories transformed court documents and newspaper headlines into what they always should have been: the story of a young woman whose future was stolen. Over time, the tragedy became a catalyst for change. Nevada tightened controls regarding sex crimes, altered procedures for handling DNA samples, and introduced new violence prevention programs. Contemporary news articles stated, had these measures existed earlier, Brianna might still be alive. A painful truth, but her death propelled systemic change. Each anniversary, the city lights candles. People stand in silence, a quiet that speaks louder than words. It is memory. It is pain, but it is also hope that such a thing will not recur. Brianna Dennison's story isn't solely about a crime. It's a narrative about how a community can transform loss into resolve. How parents, friends, and strangers can unite in the desire to prevent future tragedy. She was taken too soon, but her name endures through the foundation, memorial events, and safety discussions that save others. It lives on in every person who, upon hearing her story, chooses not to disregard another's distress. Brianna Dennison remains a symbol that indifference is perilous, that a human life is invaluable, and that even within the darkest tailings, light persists. The light of memory that helps others move forward. This was the story of Brianna Dennison, the case that shook Nevada.